Well, hello and happy Thursday. Thank you very much for joining me. I've got a great conversation with Jared Yates Sexton, which begins at about 41 minutes. Plus, I've got your headlines and a clip show, sound bites from yesterday. And since it's Thursday, I am going to be hosting a happy hour hangout, which we've been doing for 6 years this month, tonight at 8 East. Hope to see you there. If you're a paid subscriber, you'll get an email with a link. And I hope to see you in Podjam in Las Vegas, April 9th through 12th. You should have gotten an email from Cassie with some more information about it. There's still more to come, but I'm very much looking forward to that. Get your tickets now. And now let's get to today's headlines. Here's the latest update from the New York Times. They write, the United States and Iran struggled to find a way to begin negotiations over peace terms on Wednesday, with each insisting it had the upper hand in the war. The United States circulated a 15-point peace plan, diplomats said. It was written in gold. I'm kidding. They demanded what would amount to a complete termination of Iran's nuclear program and strict limits on its missile arsenal. The White House press secretary and angry cashier Caroline Leavitt said Iran's forces had been crushed after 4 weeks of strikes by the United States and Israel. Quote, that's why you're beginning to see the regime look for an exit ramp, she said, projecting about our regime. But Iranian officials, they didn't sound defeated. In a statement issued through state television, an official, who everybody is saying was very good-looking, said the government would not end the attacks unless the United States paid war reparations and recognized Iranian control over a vital oil route, which we've all gotten to know so well, the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has effectively blocked the strait to most shipping. The Iranian official said that Tehran would not allow our Ayatollah to, quote, dictate the timing of the war's end. Later, the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said in an interview with a state broadcaster that Iran had no intention of negotiating. Still, Iranian officials signaled privately on Tuesday that they were open to negotiations, raising the prospect of a cessation in hostilities. Israel, for its part, worried that our schmuck in chief might end the war before it had achieved its goals, dismantling Iran's ballistic missile program and blocking its ability to develop nuclear weapons. Moved on Wednesday to step up its efforts to destroy as much of Iran's military capabilities as possible. Their prime minister and homegrown madman Benjamin Netanyahu ordered a 48-hour campaign of attacks focused on crippling Iran's arms industry, according to senior Israeli officials. Iran's military said on Wednesday that it had fired cruise missiles at the U.S. aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln. The Israeli military struck in the southern outskirts of Beirut. Israel said it also targeted gas stations tied to Hezbollah's financial network. In the U.S., several congressional Republicans left classified Pentagon briefings on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, frustrated by the lack of crucial details about the next steps in the war. In Iraq, the Prime Minister instructed the Foreign Ministry to summon the U.S. Embassy charge d'affaires and deliver a strongly worded letter of protest after a strike that Defense Ministry said killed 7 soldiers and injured 13 others on Wednesday at a site in western Iraq. And the death tolls mount. Iran's UN ambassador said at least 1,348 civilians have been killed in the country since the war began, a toll that has not been updated since March 11th. The human rights activist news agency had reported more than 1,440 civilians had been killed in Iran. Almost 1,100 people in Lebanon have been killed, the authorities said on Wednesday. At least 15 were killed in Iranian attacks on Israel, officials said. The American death toll said that at least 13 service members have died. Also, an AI-generated propaganda video put out by the Iranians has the Statue of Liberty blowing up, so that's fun. South Korea is shifting to an emergency economic response over an energy crisis caused by our madman's own egotistical war. The Japanese government is beginning to release oil from their government-owned reserves. The Spanish prime minister laced into the American president, as did members of parliament in the UK. I'll bring you some clips from that. And the big question is whether or not the U.S. is preparing for an attack on Karg Island. Well, Iran is actively preparing for it, including laying traps in case of a ground invasion. The United States Postal Service says packages are going to cost more to ship. They'll charge a first ever 8% fuel surcharge on packages, adding to the costs for American consumers and businesses as a result of the war with Iran. And those are the headlines I've got just related to the war and its ripple effect throughout the world. If there was not a war report at the beginning of today's and everyday's news segment moving forward, I would have started with the major, maybe I didn't need to give it two majors. The New York Times says it's a landmark trial. Social media giants have been found negligent in this landmark trial. A jury in Los Angeles found that Meta and YouTube had harmed a young user by making their popular social media platforms addictive. The case was brought by a woman, now 20 years old, who said that features like infinite scroll and algorithmic recommendations led her to anxiety and depression. Isn't that all of us, apparently? Well, the verdict is a big deal because apparently it validates this novel legal theory that social media can be addictive and as harmful as products like cigarettes and opioids. The social media giants were ordered to collectively pay roughly $6 million in damages, which means nothing for them because they're trillion-dollar companies. But the decision, they're saying, could be a bellwether for future lawsuits, which could result in much larger financial damages or changes, God forbid, to the company's products. So major setback for the tech giants, and 2 days in a row because New Mexico jury on Tuesday found social media platforms had harmed children's mental health and violated state consumer protection laws, and they were found guilty on all counts and had to pay $375 million in civil penalties. Again, not a drop in the bucket, but it's the precedent it sets for far larger lawsuits and more of them that I guess makes all of this landmark. It's landmark. All right. Well, in other news, the classified documents scandal that our commander-in-chief took documents and was using them for leverage or to sell from his first term, it's still generating new headlines. Special counsel Jack Smith gathered evidence, apparently, that then-candidate Trump took many top-secret documents that related to his worldwide business interests, and investigators consider this as a likely motive for him concealing them at his Florida club in the bathroom, and no one cared after he left the White House. This is according to new released case records, and that's why it's majorly important. Look up the guy Nick Adams, and then you can not thank me later because he is this new diplomatic envoy for American tourism appointed by our embarrassment in chief, and he's the worst. He's like this caricature of a right-wing influencer that has this kind of over-the-top machismo and, you know, like love for steaks and Hooters restaurants. And he's awful. He's just a trolly, terrible, gross, exaggerated, like Hollywood wouldn't write this guy up as the fake tough guy making fun of fake American tough guys. But yet he's real, and his name is Nick Adams, and he's got the job to somehow attract people to America. All right. Well, I'm sure that'll work out really well, just like everything else. Well, here's an Associated Press headline that I thought was worth mentioning and reading just a little bit about. It's titled, "It's Not Just Vaccines. Parents Are Refusing Other Preventative Care for Newborns." Doctors across the nation, they say, are alarmed that skepticism fueled by rising anti-science sentiment and medical mistrust is increasing, reaching beyond vaccines to other proven routine preventative care for babies. That's right. A recent study in the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA as they call it, analyzed more than 5 million births nationwide, and they found that people are refusing, new parents, they're refusing vitamin K injections. Shots. They don't like any shots. And the refusals have doubled between 2017 and 2024 from 2.9% to 5.2%. Other research suggests that parents who decline vitamin K shots are much more likely to refuse getting their newborn's hepatitis B vaccine and an eye ointment to prevent potentially blinding infections. Rates for that vaccination at birth have dropped in recent years, and doctors confirm that more parents are refusing the eye medication. This is a whole long article based on this study. Really important to trust your doctors, to listen to your doctors. All these things have been developed over years. They're miracles. They save your babies, and you should tell your friends and loved ones to listen to their physicians. That's all I could say about that. All right, moving on. Ukraine entered this month with rare momentum, according to this article, on an update on the war there from the New York Times. With the counterattack in the Zaporizhzhia region, its troops gained more territory than they lost over the course of a month for the first time since 2023, thanks in part to Elon Musk's decision to block Russian access to his satellite internet service. But now Russian forces are taking advantage of more favorable weather, pushing forward to retake land that was recently lost. Their attacks are also intensifying. Yesterday, Moscow's forces launched more than 550 drones at cities across the Ukraine, the country. So it is, just wanted to give you a quick update there. Don't want to forget about what is happening there, and we should probably talk with someone that can talk specifically about the war. And I just read thousands and thousands of Russians continue to die in the war. It's just so hard to fathom that kind of death and violence and it being tolerated, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not being reported. Maybe it's not impactful to the Russian people. I have a lot of questions about that. Well, big story in America for the past week. Travelers flying across the country have waited in security lines that snake through airports and parking lots as Transportation Security Administration officers are just calling out of work because of this partial government shutdown. They're not getting paid. Who could blame them? Well, some heroes are reporting to work and holding down the fort. Nowhere else has the effect been more palpable, apparently, than George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston, where people have been waiting for more than 4 hours to go through security checkpoints. Yeah, Tuesday, similar wait times expected yesterday, apparently. As the partial shutdown of Department of Homeland Security reached 40 days, hundreds of TSA officers have quit. Many more have called out of work, straining resources during the spring break travel season. Tuesday, Bush Airport reported about 40% of its security force just did not show up, the highest such rate in the country. And their union representatives are saying it's a lack of pay issue. 100%, it's a lack of pay. When you have 40% of your workforce not showing up, you're in trouble. That's a lot of people. Well, we continue into yet another day of this shutdown, showdown, and traveling. Let me know what your experiences are. Let me know if you've waited, if you're seeing ICE agents in the airports. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I definitely will read your reporting from wherever you are, you citizen journalist, you. Speaking of citizens, the great Gareth Sever, who we know and love, one part of Buckets and Boards, very talented musician, has talked openly about how he contracted this tick-borne meat allergy. It's called alpha-gal. And I just saw this report, Gareth, that this red meat allergy, beginning with a tick bite, has emerged as a significant health menace. Now, from Oklahoma to North Carolina and up the East Coast, this tick-borne meat allergy is spreading. The CDC has estimated that some 450,000 Americans have had it in the past 15 years, and some experts think that's an undercount. Most U.S. cases are believed to come from the Lone Star tick. The bite sometimes results in a severe reaction to red meat. There's been one documented death, with at least 3 more suspected, and so it's spreading, is what I'm saying. Be careful. You can spray your clothes. You can get those gaiters that you wear that some of you guys think are cool on your lower pant leg. There's all kinds of things you can do, but I want you to stay outside and not let that prevent you. But just don't roll around in the grass, baby. You definitely don't do that for sure. The Supreme Court, the justices unanimously ruled that an internet provider could not be held liable for the piracy of thousands of songs. Interesting judgment there. In Great Britain, they have their first female Archbishop of Canterbury. Her name is Sarah Mullally, and she was installed the most senior cleric in the Church of England, spiritual leader of the Anglican Church. So I guess that's good. Is that progress? I don't know. I like women advancing in religion in general, but I also want to read between the lines. What are they pushing? Who are they for? In New Jersey, the governor there, speaking of women leaders, Mikey Sherrill, signed a legislation to prohibit on-duty law enforcement officers, including immigration agents, from wearing masks. There you go, New Jersey. Well done. And now there's a reporting that the Trump administration is using pressure, funding, and favors to secure a secret deal with the Cameroonian government to deport hundreds of migrants. So keep your eye on that country and its work with the U.S. to host migrants in prisons, detention centers. I don't know. And finally, this from ABC News. The headline, I just wanted to mention it because they did a report that despite the Trump regime's attempts to halt renewable energy, wind power will continue to grow. The Department of Interior said it will pay nearly $1 billion to stop wind projects, and you might have seen that and thought, we're not going to be able to progress with wind energy. But ABC News did this report. They talked to a bunch of experts, and they don't see it. There's nothing that they can do to stop it is basically the conclusion. But I thought that was good news. Wanted to mention it here at the end. In 2025, wind and solar energy generated a record 17% of electricity in the U.S., up from less than 1% in 2005. And that is a headline I just want to keep focused on and mentioning. Those are all of your headlines for today. And now it's time to get to the sound bites. It's the clip show, and I've got a whole bunch of good ones for you. First, let's start with the clips that are referencing regarding or somehow tangentially or indirectly related to day 27 of the U.S.-Israel invasion bombing of Iran. I want to start with some analysis from military experts. First, here is Congressman Jason Crow. He's a former member of the 82nd Airborne who was part of the kind of the tip of the spear of the Iraq invasion in 2003. So he knows what he's talking about. And it looks like he made this video and posted it on his own social media. Congressman Jason Crow.
So there are public rumors now about the 82nd Airborne Division being activated to be sent to Iran by Donald Trump. This is really personal for me because I served in the 82nd Airborne Division, the All-American Division, one of the most storied military units in American history. I led a platoon of paratroopers in the 82nd in the invasion of Iraq in 2003. And I can tell you, these are some of America's best. And they were always willing to get the mission done. But I also know what it's like to be sent somewhere and have the months go by and the years go by and not have a clear strategy, not have a clear end game, to feel forgotten, to feel left behind. And I came to Congress to make sure that that would never happen again. And I simply want to stop our cycle of endless conflict. Enough is enough. We want to make sure that we are using force as a last resort, that we're not sending people into harm's way, which is one of our deepest, most solemn responsibilities to make that decision. And we're not doing it unless it's absolutely necessary.
Good to get that perspective, obviously, from Congressman Jason Crow, and that perspective is shared by a whole bunch of other congressmen, including some Republicans in both the House and Senate. Let's listen to Tom Nichols. He is an expert on war, actually teaches it at the War College, and formerly advised the president and rather, I believe, Republicans during the Iraq War. Anyway, here he is on MS Now with his analysis.
I think the thing that we're all hesitant to say at moments like this when the president wanders off into these flights of fancy is, and Senator Duckworth walked up to that line as well, is that the president is just doesn't have a grasp of reality. He's not stable. There's something not right here. And he, on his initiative and for his reasons, and I think Senator Duckworth was right, it's ego, he started a war. And now he can't get out of it, and he doesn't know where to turn now. And so he's getting a very filtered view of reality. They're showing him, heroic montages every morning. That's bonkers. That's not how you brief. I worked for a politician. I worked for a senior senator during a war. That's not how you brief a senator, much less a president. And so this whole process has become completely haywire. So there really is no way to hold him accountable in the sense of, did he achieve his war aims? Because as you say, Alicia, he's been all over the map.
All right, Tom Nichols on MS Now yesterday. Now let's listen to, I thought this was interesting. PBS NewsHour reached out to several military experts, including retired Major General Randy Manner. And they played a clip of Pete Hegseth, and he watched it and reacted, and this is it.
We also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country.
Those are the words of a potential war criminal, right there. And that is not the advice and counsel and direction that any Secretary of Defense should be providing our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. It puts them actually in greater danger. The Secretary of Defense is a disgraced major that was kicked out of the D.C. National Guard. He has no qualifications whatsoever to be the Secretary of Defense other than his extreme loyalty to the president. Again, those are the words of a potential war criminal.
Yeah, very well said. I like that segment from PBS NewsHour. Here is the former Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, using a lot of technical terminology to say that the Trump administration is in a total clusterfuck.
I think that what we're seeing is a situation where targetry never makes up for a lack of strategy. And by that I mean 15,000 targets have been hit. There have been significant military successes, but they are not matched by strategic outcomes.
Well, there you go. All right. That's a bunch of reactions and analysis from military experts. But let's head over to Europe, across the pond specifically, to British Parliament, and listen to the debate between MPs and the PM, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and the reaction to this first part.
Mr. Speaker, just before President Trump posted about his supposed negotiations with Iran on Monday, traders made hundreds of millions of dollars of extra bets on oil futures. This looks like Donald Trump giving his mates insider information so they can make themselves richer, while his illegal war in Iran makes everyone else poorer. This looks like corruption of the very worst kind. Does the Prime Minister share my fear that Trump is making his war decisions based on what enriches himself and his friends rather than what makes peace in the Middle East?
Prime Minister. Well, can I thank him for his verdict? At least he's read the law that she obviously hasn't read. But, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the traders, we've seen the activity there. What I can say is that all of my decisions are based in the best interests of our country, and that's why I've decided that we will not get dragged into the war, unlike the Leader of the Opposition, and I've decided we will act in collective self-defence of ourselves and our allies. And so I comment on my actions, and they're the principles behind my actions.
There you go. That is the leader of the UK, Keir Starmer. Now here's the leader of Spain. It's Spain's prime minister. His name is Pedro Sanchez, through a translator, but it works.
What have the promoters of this illegal war achieved? In my opinion, this is what they have done. First, undermined international law, destabilized the Middle East, reignited conflicts in Iraq and Lebanon, buried Gaza under the rubble of oblivion and indifference. They brought insecurity to Gulf countries that until less than a month ago were safe, encouraged nuclear programs in Pakistan and North Korea, and given Vladimir Putin more than 8 billion euros to finance his war and invasion in Ukraine, thanks to rising fuel prices and the lifting of sanctions also brought about by the U.S. administration.
Yeah, and that's the translation. Handsome guy kind of ranting that out, so it doesn't quite do it justice. Now here is the next clip. It's Tim Snyder. He's the expert in authoritarianism, the guy that moved, one of two. Jason Stanley also moved to Canada to get out of America because apparently they see what's coming. At least that's what a lot of folks say is the reason. Also, they were probably targeted. But Tim Snyder is sounding fairly defeated here in this short clip promoting his latest Substack post.
It's the oldest game in the book. Generate a crisis abroad, declare some kind of state of emergency at home, try to stay in power. We've now got a war abroad. We can expect, unfortunately, some terrible surprises at home. And Trump will, and we got to know this, we got to predict this, we got to be ready for this, try to say that this means we've got to federalize the elections. I wrote a piece laying it all out on Substack today. Hope you have a look.
All right. Hope you do have a look. He's been predicting this, saying it as loudly as possible everywhere, and I want to echo it because we love Tim Snyder, as somber and dire as that all sounds. Moving on, believe it or not, here is Congresswoman Nancy Mace on Laura Coates' CNN last night. She's for the war, but not for any kind of boots-on-the-ground ground invasion. Not that kind of war. Take it away, Laura.
The president saying and suggesting consistently that this is a short-term endeavor. Mm-hmm. He has used various words to convey that this is not a long-term war or a conflict. Based on the briefing you received today, do you think that that lines up with the reality?
I think that he's been right so far, 100% right. He has executed this war perfectly, in my opinion, so far. What I am concerned about is the Washington war machine. Doing what
that's Lindsey Graham.
I take that as Senator Graham, the senior senator from South Carolina. I take that as the military-industrial complex. I take that as a guy that is going back to my home state of South Carolina, telling mothers and fathers to send their children into war to take an island over oil. And I am vehemently opposed to that.
I want to play, so everyone's on the same page, hearing what you're talking about in reference to Senator Lindsey Graham, what he had to say.
So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this.
I know you take issue with several points he's raised, including Iwo Jima and the loss of American lives there, and the
7,000 or
died
more on the black sands of Iwo Jima.
So explain your opposition to his statements about Carg Island, or the idea of allowing the regime to die on a vine.
I want President Trump to take Lindsey Graham out of the Situation Room.
Is he advising the president?
He brags about it, and I don't think Lindsey Graham, for all of that hubris, has thought through or war game the consequences of us taking Carg Island. Has he thought through what the Houthis are going to do? Has he thought through where Hezbollah is? Because Hezbollah is not going to fly on a plane from Tehran. Hezbollah is here. Hezbollah is waiting. Hezbollah has not struck yet. Has he thought about
the here? You mean you think the United States is at risk based on Carg Island?
Is affiliated with Hezbollah. They get trained in Venezuela. I mean, they're here. They've crossed an open border that was open for the last 4 years or so. But has Senator Graham thought through the consequences, what Iran will do to disrupt the economy? They've already done a lot, but what they will do even more so if we were to take Carg Island. And so that's why I'm looking at this more holistically and thinking about, have we thought about the consequences? I want us to declare victory because we've won. President Trump has won. And now it's time to show us, the American people, what is the exit strategy? Because the men and women that we send to war deserve an answer to how does this end.
Well, we will see where she votes and if any of that mattered, but sorry about how much Nancy Mace I just gave you. Nobody needs that much Nancy Mace, but I thought it was contextual and wanted to keep it all in there. And now to go to some clips that are not related directly to Iran, but that I grabbed for you yesterday. Here's Sheldon Whitehouse, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, dressing down 4 nominees for federal court judges yesterday. I thought this was very powerful. He's saying it right to their face because all of them gave wishy-washy answers on who won the 2020 election.
How ridiculous the 4 of you look, spouting these preposterous, canned answers in a forum in which A, you're supposed to tell the truth, and B, you're supposed to demonstrate the judicial capacity to make independent, factual decisions in hard cases. If you can't even sit here and say that Joe Biden won that election or that the Capitol was attacked, what's left? What's left if a hard case comes your way as a judge, and let's say the Trump administration is bearing down on that? Why would we ever believe that you would give the litigants a fair hearing and a fair decision if the executive branch was leaning in on you when we can't get a reasonable answer out of any of you? I'm really sorry to have to go through this and that you have to go through this. But it would be nice if you could tell your executive branch handlers, I don't need to make myself ridiculous at your direction. It'd be great if you could have said that. It would be great if your answers were simple and honest here today. It's really disappointing.
All right. Well done. I like that from Sheldon Whitehouse. This is a fun moment on the 5 on Fox provided to us by Jessica Tarlov. She's making fun of stupid Jesse Waters, and I do appreciate that. Greg Gutfeld is in the background laughing at anybody who's funny, generally speaking, and including when the shots are coming at his right-hand man.
My Wall Street sources aren't saying the same thing that Jesse's Wall Street sources are saying either. But I love that you read a newspaper.
I read more than you every day.
I don't know if that's true.
Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, New York Post.
And you still say this crap on TV after you've read all that?
By the way, in case you didn't hear Jesse Waters, he said, I read more than you do every day, which is, I mean, such a childish response. Not that I was expecting anything better. I don't know who sent me this. Somebody sent me this. This is a congresswoman from a state house representative in Minnesota. and she's in the House floor saying this. Her name is Mary Franson. I actually went down a rabbit hole and looked her up to see what part of Minnesota she represented, because her beliefs here are so crazy about climate change, and it's not what Jesus said. So I'm going to put you through it, because I forget who did this, but you're to blame for sharing this with the entire audience, and you should come out and remind me who you are. Climate denier, Bible literalist, Mary Hansen.
And that's why when we talk about climate change, I don't get upset about it. I don't get worked up about it, is because my faith is not in climate change. It's not in scientists dictating what we should and should not do to save the environment, because my faith is in Jesus Christ, right? He's the same today, tomorrow, and forever, yesterday. And so, if you've read the good book, you know how it ends. It's not with climate change. And that's my closing speech.
Oh, man. That lady represents, at the State House, like 40,000 people, I think I said, saw in her district there in Minnesota. They're overwhelmingly white folks, which is not that surprising, but man, that was real depressing to hear and real stupid. And she said that in front of her colleagues. And I wonder, I almost wanted to reach out and talk to her and have a serious conversation, but then I was like, nah, I'll do something else. Okay, here is Justin Wolfers. He's an economist with a great Australian accent and style. We all love him. He's on MS Now, and I thought this clip was relevant.
Look, it's easy to get stuck on the rich ironies of the moment and so on, but let's just actually take a step back to, I think, something far more fundamental here, which is there's no case for the US not to be, double negative. The US should always be leaning into renewable energy, clean energy, and energy that takes us away from reliance on the Middle East. The president's case against wind are literally the rantings of an old man. I've seen Grandpa Simpson make more sense. So the fact that we get stuck on the irony is one thing, but let's actually just come back to the reality, which is this is non-scientific, doesn't make sense, non-economic, and doesn't serve the American people.
Yeah, always good. The Wolfers. Listen, mate. Okay, here's Senator Lisa Murkowski. She's a Republican, or I guess now she's an independent, and she's standing in front of a map. This is not great audio, but it makes some pretty good points, and I guess I should cut it. I'm going to cut it because she keeps making the same point over and over about how far it would take to go get the documents that you needed to vote, given the SAVE Act. She's arguing against the SAVE Act, and she's saying why it would cost people money and time, and nobody's going to do it. And here she is. And again, stand in front of a map. I think this is at the Senate. Lisa Murkowski.
I was born down here in Ketchikan. There's no star in Ketchikan. Now, there is a DMV in Ketchikan. So maybe I could start my application there in Ketchikan, but I'm still going to have to go to Juneau to go present my documentation. All of Southeast, there's no roads down there. There is a ferry. It's 20 hours from Ketchikan up to Juneau there. Or I take the Alaska Airlines jet. It's only an hour. But, I don't know, it's $420 to get me from here to there. If I am in Fairbanks, where I went to school, okay, I've got the ability to present my documentation there. But if I'm in any of these North Slope communities here, this is where I have to fly to present my original documentation. So this is going to be hard. This is going to be costly on Alaskans. And again, these are people who are eligible to vote. They're citizens of our country. But if they're looking at a situation where I'm going to have to spend $1,000 to get me to where I can present my documentation to vote, they're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. They would be disenfranchised. They'd be prevented from voting. Or they could just fill out a form and mail it in. And then it's really easy and free, and everybody gets a vote. That's how democracy should work, including the dumb people. The people you disagree with, they should get to vote too. So anyway, I thought that was worth sharing. And now let's hear from the district attorney of Philadelphia. He's at the Philadelphia airport making these comments at a brief press conference to make sure that all the federal agents there know that the president cannot pardon you from state crimes. And he, Larry Krasner, is not afraid to bring them. Krasner.
That's how it works. You commit crimes within the jurisdiction that is the city and county of Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I prosecute you. That is how it works. No, I don't take a phone call from the president saying let him go. No, the president cannot pardon you. I'll say it again. The president cannot pardon you. And yes, I will put you in handcuffs, and I will put you in a courtroom, and if necessary, I will put you in a jail cell. If you decide to make the terrazzo floor of this airport anything like what you did in the streets of Minneapolis, which involved the criminal homicide of unarmed, innocent people. We are not having that here. But let me go back to all ICE agents who are going to keep their oath, who are going to follow the law and uphold the Constitution of the United States. Thank you for keeping your oath. To any agent who might think about doing it an illegal way, I'll be seeing you in court. And you're not going to like it.
No, you're not going to like it. All right. You've been Krasnered. I like that guy. District Attorney, Philadelphia. And let's now go to my final clip, which is comedy. It's Seth Meyers last night on Late Night with Seth Meyers on NBC.
If you don't mind, we're going to get to the news. Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen was sworn in yesterday as the Homeland Security Secretary, a proud moment for his parents, Dave Jim and Sue Nancy Mullen. During his swearing-in ceremony yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen said that it, quote, seems surreal being in the Oval Office and having the President of the United States speak so highly of me. Enjoy it while it lasts, said thousands of people at the same time. During Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen's swearing-in ceremony yesterday, President Trump praised U.S. service members intercepting Iranian missiles and called them, quote, the coolest cucumbers ever, which might be the nicest thing he's ever said about a green vegetable. In a post today on Truth Social, President Trump said that the public loves ICE officers and added, quote, they're great American patriots and just happen to have much larger and harder muscles than most. All right, I don't think the public loves ICE, but more importantly, why are you talking like a drunk aunt at the beach? Those boys throwing the football have larger muscles than most. Aunt Jenny, let me smell your water bottle. Go right ahead, you can't smell vodka. President Trump told reporters yesterday the U.S. and Iran are in negotiations right now to end the war and added, quote, they're talking to us and they're talking sense. Well, if they're talking sense, you're gonna need a translator. Military officials reportedly compiled a video update for President Trump that includes the biggest and most successful strikes from the war in Iran, although some of the footage looks very familiar. We got him. We got Nakatomi. President Trump reportedly planned to replace the gray pavement under his Presidential Walk of Fame with a black granite walkway. Yeah, man, go for it. Might as well, because at this point, you're definitely not getting your security deposit back. First Lady Melania Trump hosted an AI roundtable event today that featured a robot named Figure 3 and said that it was her, quote, first American-made humanoid guest in the White House. All right, it was at best the second. The Army recently increased its maximum enlistment age from 35 to 42 years old, said one drill instructor, drop and give me 4 sets of 5. That's right, the Army recently increased its maximum enlistment age to 42 years old, so expect those letters from back home to get less sexy. Hey, fellas, gather round. She says Rebecca needs braces. The makers of natural light beer are offering a new fertilizer. What does it grow? Boston. And finally, in honor of National Cheesesteak Day, employees at the Philadelphia airport attempted to break a Guinness World Record yesterday by lining up nearly 1,300 sandwiches. Awesome, said everyone waiting in the security line. What are they? Oh, good for them. That's awesome. All right, you guys, that was a monologue.
All right, there you go. Seth Meyers and That's what I've got for you today. Yeah, there you go. Your headlines and your clips. I hope you appreciate it. I cannot do it without your support. Welcome to new subscribers, and thank you to a couple of you who have recently upgraded your subscription because, as you say, you listen all the time. Why not? Shout out to Shannon, who said, I just want to tell you I upped my subscription today. I realized that your show is the first show I listen to above the rest. I listen to plenty of others, but your show is still the one I go to first. In my humble opinion, your show is the best. There's not a better rundown of the news out there. I love the clip show so much. I can skip a day of news and know that you will cover it and keep me informed. And you have the best guests as well. I think what makes your show so special, Pete, is you. You have that something special that just feels so genuine, authentic. I never doubt that you care and mean everything that you say. I started listening to you about 4 or 5 years ago, and my day starts with listening to you while I unload the dishwasher. Aha. Shannon, isn't it great that you have a dishwasher that you get to unload every morning? Don't take that for granted. In that moment, say, I am so grateful that this dishwasher is here and clean my dishes so sparkly. That was a very, very thoughtful email. And I felt a little uncomfortable reading such praise about me, reading it. But listen, I don't have somebody reading these promos for me. You write a thing that nice, you should record it and then let me play it. Yeah. Record why you like the show or something similar to what Shannon wrote and keep it under, 30 seconds or so. And I'll play some of those clips as a way to promote the show and get people to up their subscriptions or get a paid subscription because lots of you, the majority of you, listen for free. So please consider it now. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Let's get to my guest today. It's Jared Yates Sexton. You know him. You love him. He's sexy. He's smart. He's thoughtful. He's kind. He's the author of American Rule: How a Nation Conquered the World But Failed Its People, as well as The Man They Wanted Me to Be, Toxic Masculinity and a Crisis of Our Own Making, and most recently, The Midnight Kingdom, A History of Power, Paranoia, and the Coming Crisis. He's a political analyst. He, like I said, an author, a writing professor. His work has appeared in the New York Times, The New Republic, Politico, Daily Beast, and more. He's the co-host of the Muckrake podcast, and you should subscribe to his Substack, Dispatches from a Collapsing State. You can support him on Patreon. We love Jared. You should follow him on all the social media. Here is my conversation with him from yesterday, which you can watch on YouTube or Substack at Stand Up with Pete. Always happy to have you joining me. So much to talk with you about. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Where are we at? Where do you think we're at? What chapter of the story of America in 26 is it? And where do you think we're going? That's what I want to talk about here. So start wherever you want.
We're fucking cooked.
Yeah.
We're cooked.
Cooked.
Yeah. It's literally, it's one of those moments where all of the things that we've all been screaming about for a very long time, it's one of those things, I'm sure you've had it. You've had a friend or a family member that didn't take care of themselves. They had problems and everyone's like, you're killing yourself right now. And then eventually you get the call and it's like, they're in the hospital. We're in the hospital. And now you have to have conversations about what comes next and where things go. But yeah, we're cooked right now.
Be more specific, unpacked, cooked. And is that a new framing that you're using that has anything to do with, or has the war in Iran, which is going to be about a month into, I don't think we've talked since it began. Has that changed that framing to cooked, or is cooked something you've been thinking for a while?
I've been at this, studying this and prognosticating now for a decade. And there were all these points, and you as well, there were all these points where we all saw the problems and we said, we need to fix them before they get worse. We need to stay away from this. We need to fix this. We need to address this crisis. One crisis after another, it grows and it grows. And then there was a certain moment where I was like, oh, the American empire is dying. Like it's in decline. And something is going to happen because of the material conditions, because of what capitalism wants, because of geopolitics. And eventually something really catastrophic is going to happen, this crisis that we're now in. And eventually we're going to do something because we keep electing assholes like Donald Trump and we're fascist, are inherently self-destructive. We're going to do something desperate and stupid. And here we are. We are now into a disastrous war that we were led into by multiple client states of the American empire. There's really no off-ramp. We misunderestimated the enemy and what was going to happen in a hubristic fashion. And now the entire infrastructure of our economic hegemony is gone. Like the thing, and by the way, before this even happened, our economy was in shambles. It was a Ponzi scheme that was getting ready to fall apart. And now it has just been exposed. This is a cooked moment. The question now is what comes after the cooked moment.
So it's interesting that you see it that way. I wonder if you can be even more specific, because when I think of us being cooked and all of the kind of framing you just said, I'm like, it's opening day. People are overwhelmingly employed. We're headed into spring. Americans aren't paying a cost for the war unless they're one of those who've died. You see the gas prices going up, and prices are still up, but we've been dealing with that for several years. That's not good. And yeah, people's healthcare costs. There's a lot of bad trends, but overwhelmingly, fairs are happening. Carnivals, the malls are packed. All kinds of after-school sports are happening. People are making record amounts of money in the stock market and so on. And hey, play ball.
First of all, I appreciate the baseball reference.
Yeah, I'm excited this year.
I'm excited too.
First time in a long time. I like the postseason last year, so we're going to enjoy baseball. Baseball's going to be fun. The stadiums are going to be packed. Jared, what are you talking about?
And by the way, on this note, and I love the way
it's not cooked. Major League Baseball, sir.
I got bad news, because next season might not happen because there's a lockout. So this is
also all sports are kind of cooked. College sports are cooked because of all the money and all the betting scandals and schemes and markets, Polymarket and Kalshi. They've cooked not only world events but sports. But anyway, MLB, I'm enjoying. NFL's going to happen.
So here's the thing.
Basketball.
And by the way, what a wonderful metaphor, because all of them are cooked. I'm a college basketball guy. This is my time of the year.
Yeah, it's been fun. I watch it all weekend. It's not cooked.
I'm happier than a pig in shit right now.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
And baseball's starting up tonight. I'm having a great time. So this is a great metaphor, because I want to put a couple of things on the table.
All right.
First things first, the economy has been and has always been a Ponzi scheme. It's just an extra special Ponzi scheme now. Basically, the entire economy is held up by a bubble in which the same tech companies are handing billions of dollars over to one another for a product that doesn't work. And if it did work, it would wipe out over 50% of all jobs. Here's a fun fact, Pete. That bubble, those billions of dollars that are being handled around, where's that money come from? It comes from Saudi Arabia. It comes from Middle Eastern countries that are currently being bombed and are enacting force majeure clauses in terms of getting out oil and gas. So that money's going to go away. On top of that, we have a historic level of household personal debt in this country. That usually is what happens right before a giant thing pops. Meanwhile, the entire infrastructure of American hegemony, we went out, we created neoliberal globalism, we got everybody in these supply chains. By the way, COVID really showed us that was very fragile and could fall apart. Now, all of a sudden, we have been able to create this American-led infrastructure by going to the Gulf Coast, or going into the Gulf and going into Middle Eastern countries and saying, we'll protect you. We'll make sure you're not going to get involved in a bunch of wars. And as a result, we'll buy your oil and gas. We'll give you a ton of money, and you're going to reinvest it in the United States of America. Now, all of a sudden, these countries are like, oh, the United States of America can't even beat Iran. Iran's got us by the short hairs. And they, by the way, are taking one of the major shipping routes. They're now making people pay for it, not in dollars, in wands.
Yeah, what does that mean? That doesn't sound good for us.
That's not fucking good. Then on top of it, it's not even just gas, because, and this is what I'm working on, Pete, and you're a great communicator, maybe you'll help me. I'm now referring to this as the Wile E. Coyote economy, which is whenever he'd run off a cliff and he'd keep running and running until he looked down and then he fell. That's where we're at.
Oh, you think so? So when do you okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I'll just say basically what's happening is everybody is continuing with investing in the stock market, because the president, by the way, has cooked the stock market in order to enrich himself and his friends and family. On top of that, if they stop investing in it, that's Wile E. Coyote's looking down, and then all of a sudden you're in the gulch. Meanwhile, it's not even oil and gas. It's that oil is involved in everything that you possibly buy. Fertilizer, which last time I checked is absolutely necessary to grow crops. Everything is going to get more expensive. We're already maxed out on debt. The whole point is it's like running a business for a while and being like, we'll figure it out. And then suddenly you sit down and you look at the books and it's, we can't even afford to have the lights on next week. That's where we're at.
If that's where we're at, what happens next? Specifically, are you predicting that by the end of the summer or at the beginning of next year? Or we have 222 days until the midterm election. There are some events we can predict, and we can talk about what that election is going to look like. When you say that we're on borrowed time, it sounds like that Wile E. Coyote metaphor, which I love, and boy, did I love that cartoon and all the cartoons of that era and style. But be more specific with how you see this playing out and when, if you can.
So there's so many questions at this point. I don't know. Did you see that Iran countered our peace offer? Did you see this?
Yeah, but all these public negotiations and statements being put out through the Pakistanis, I believe them. I believe both sides are saying what they're saying. But I feel like privately it's something different. The most significant element about that, by the way, is I heard we don't want to negotiate with Witkoff and Kushner because we think they're corrupt and doing deals for their guy.
And they are.
I'm not sure exactly if we have a lot of evidence of that. Of course I would believe that and think that's probably the case. Every president goes through normal diplomatic channels using the State Department, etc. So Iran's saying, we want to talk with Rubio or anybody but Witkoff and Kushner. I don't know about these negotiations, but go ahead with your point about how it's happening right now.
So basically at this point, we're in a situation where we're trying to find an off-ramp where we're able to save some face and we'll be able to hold on to the petrodollar.
Yeah, we're good at that. He's good at that.
We used to be.
He's good. Trump is uniquely good at caving. The tariff.
He is, but he's also declared bankruptcy, I believe, something like 4 times. Eventually, the check comes due. And again, I don't think that this is even, I say all the time, Donald Trump is a symptom of a larger disease. I think our fate was sealed to get to this point in March of 2003 when we went into Iraq. This has been a situation that has been coming down the tracks for a very long time. Yeah. My point is this. I don't know when Wile E. Coyote is going to look down. I'm not sure, but I do know that this thing has been primed to explode for a very long time. We had one move, which is the military. Pete, if now all of a sudden we're talking about sending in paratroopers into one of the worst setup circumstances you could ever imagine, you have to think about, like, America doesn't deal well with a dozen Americans dying in battle. What happens when people are being killed in the sky? Then all of a sudden it's okay. So do we just tuck our tail and run and we give up on the petrodollar and we watch the economy get destroyed? Or are we like, yeah, maybe we use some nukes? And I don't know what the answer is because abusers in the United States of America and Donald Trump are both abusive actors. I don't know what happens when they get cornered, but there's nothing about the decline of America that tells me it's going to be easy. Where I'm hopeful is that as this falls apart, and I think we're closer to institutional collapse than most people want to talk about, the good news is once this thing burns down, you're going to be able to create something new. And I'm hopeful about that, but I don't think it's going to happen without a lot of pain.
We've had institutional collapse to a certain extent, haven't we? The CDC, is it collapsed? That's not collapsed. You don't think that's collapsed?
No, I think we're talking.
You tell me what you mean by institutional collapse, because institutional reputation damage is maybe more accurate. The CDC or DOJ or FBI or whatever federal government agency you want to say, who's hanging a banner of the commander in chief to your leader out in front. But I guess I want to know more specifically what you mean, because you see the CDC, the federal level, the gold standard now becoming dung. And then so California rises up and says, we'll have our own public health department and we'll regulate our own vaccines and physicians and medicine, et cetera. And they believe in crystals out there. So what could go wrong?
So there are multiple, and we could spend this entire conversation going down the different paths. I don't know. You remember Jurassic Park? Remember when Malcolm, like, he's talking about watch the
No.
You don't?
No, and I can't stand when people do that because I always feel left out. And anybody, you could have referenced The Godfather. You remember when Michael, I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
I don't remember that. And it sucks because I ruined your metaphor.
Jeff Goldblum talks about putting a drop of water on the back of a hand and how chaos, like it, you don't know where the water is going to go.
You never know where the water is going to go on your hand. I'm Jeff Goldblum. Sorry.
That's $1 million Jeff Goldblum.
You
need to wrap this up. Hank Azaria is out there doing a Bruce Springsteen impression and performances and making money. You need to take this on the road. That is.
I also, while we're at it, unleash my Jesse Ventura, because he was on Piers Morgan yesterday, and of course he's a Vietnam vet, and he said, you know what, not one Trump has ever served the military for 100 years. I say, Baron Trump, you go first.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You need to throw in some Mexican food references, because that's another one.
I like habaneros.
That's
institution.
So here's my answer.
Yeah.
When this happens, it's not just we're not able to get masks out. The question at this point, and it's not being covered particularly well, we're watching sabotage and mutiny with the military. Like, from the moment this war started, there was one leak after another from the military, from intelligence, from all of the diplomatic crews. That's not normal at the start of a war. Then all of a sudden the USS Gerald Ford had, like, its bathrooms are overflowing, the rumors of that they're shoving.
Yeah, I read those rumors that the Navy, they've been out so long, they've been deployed for a really long time and didn't, I don't know, that they purposely set fire to their bunks.
Yeah, so the USS General,
I don't know if that's true.
The USS Gerald Ford is the largest aircraft carrier we have. It's out of commission for years.
Years?
And the rumor is that sailors set a fire that they couldn't put out because they didn't want to participate in this war.
Oh, is that really? That's why? Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Meanwhile, does Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, do they enjoy the respect of the military? No, they don't. They know they're buffoons. So there are questions there. Are they going to continue going along with this facade? We don't know. When empires fall, one of the quickest things that happens is that the empire tells people on the outskirts, we can't help you. We've already seen that with Katrina and other natural disasters. We don't know what's coming. We don't even know if the election is going to be held in November. And people are pissed off. They're fighting ICE agents in the street because they're murdering people and kidnapping people. There are so many variants about which way this could go, many of them very destructive, many of them fruitful. We don't know where this is going, but we're in like uncharted, chaotic territory.
Give me a little bit more specifics as to how you define institutional collapse, because I'm interested in your doomism.
Let me give you an example. Let's talk about the fall of the Soviet Union. Right? The fall of the Soviet Union, which even Russiologists in the CIA, the people who like studied Russia and the Soviet Union, they didn't even know that the collapse was coming. And you have someone like a Gorbachev. There was a coup attempt that like the military was being used in order to try and overthrow the status quo. And a bunch of people in Moscow got in the streets and they overthrew that. And within a matter of days and weeks, the Soviet Union, the great Satan, the biggest opponent we've ever had that we thought we were going to fight the rest of our lives, it ceased to exist. And suddenly it was replaced by a brand new order. These things happen when the paradigm, it experiences so much tension and people lose faith in it. And that's certainly what's happening in this country. There's no faith in any institution that's currently standing. There's no faith in any sort of checks and balances. The economy is so bad that people aren't lulled into a sense of comfort. Like, things can change very rapidly in a way that you and I couldn't even predict.
But I don't, certainly can't. But is that what you are predicting? That this is similar to the Soviet Union's collapse? Is that kind of where we're at? Or is there a similar?
If it's not, I would say it's another chapter on the road to that.
Yeah. I think we're
okay. So let's talk about maybe the best case scenario at this point, which is wild to think about, is that China comes in and barters a peace deal between the United States and Iran.
Yeah.
And what is China trying to do, and what has it been working to do? To overthrow us as the main superpower in the world. Correct? So then all of a sudden, China gains more momentum. It shows itself as maybe the biggest superpower, while also taking something like the Strait of Hormuz and turning it from an American supply chain into a BRICS-focused supply chain.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now, we're in spheres of influence in which the United States has the Western Hemisphere and China's over here taking care of things in the East. And all of a sudden you're back into a full-blown Cold War type situation, which is what a lot of people have been like trying to create. So that's even one of the best case scenarios that we can talk about. And the American economy will not survive something like that in any type of shape that you and I would recognize based on what we've lived for.
We have a lot more specifics to talk about. These are some broader forecasts of doom and gloom that are not heartening. I'll still hold on to the fact, as long as families are still doing travel sports, I don't think we are seeing civilizational collapse, but
I'm not, to borrow a phrase, I'm not talking about that it's time for us to crack open our skulls and feast on the gooey insides.
I know, because
hopeful.
You said you're hopeful to see what comes out of kind of a collapse in a way, but I don't know, there's a lot of pain within what you're describing, I would imagine. All kinds of suffering that our generation certainly isn't familiar with. I would argue that we've been dealing with a lot of it that we weren't ready for, the pandemic. And I don't know, maybe I'm just projecting because I'm middle-aged and I've seen some shit at this point. But I do think that we predicted things would be better for us and our kids. But I don't know if I would call that the kind of suffering. I just think that the point I'm trying to make is this generation of Americans, if you will, certainly this generation, I'll speak for the white people, white middle class, upper class, I'll be more specific. People, we don't have a lot of resilience, and the suffering is a lot harder for us because we struggle, and not harder, but because we don't have resilience. We quit easier. I don't know. We give up easier.
And actually, I think what you just brought up is something actually really important. Danielle Moody and I did our show today, and I said, I've been poor. I know how to be poor. Yeah. I can be poor again. I can figure it out. And I think a lot of what has happened in this country, and it's hard to talk about and it's squishy, but you touched on it. I think a lot of the people who have that sort of status quo mindset that things are going to work out, that it's going to get fixed, this is going to happen. A lot of that are white middle-class liberals who the system has taken care of. They went to the right schools, they had jobs, they have families that have helped them.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about, a lot of them.
There's a lot of those people. And meanwhile, there are other people that the system has chewed up and spit out, including poor people, brown people, immigrants, you name it.
I would include white middle-class conservatives. There's a lot of white upper middle-class friends of mine that are white, conservative, rich, too. I'm not sure why you just included them. Because they are.
Oh, no, they're doing a different thing. I'm talking more about what the coalition is going to look like moving forward. Yeah. Because there's actually a weird thing that happens, I think, that we need to think about, which is I keep seeing people and they're like, oh, the MAGA voter is becoming disillusioned with Donald Trump. And people are thinking that somehow or another is going to lead to them voting for Democrats. That's not going to happen. Instead, you have the next line of neo-Nazi influencers who are radicalizing them with every single passing day. And to me, you said this is grim, and I said I'm hopeful. I got to tell you, on the other side of that, like one of the things, if you study like radicalization and fascism and Nazism, is that there are a lot of people who look at the fascists and there's, oh God, these people are stupid and brutish. But like when their jobs are wiped out, particularly if they're middle class, they are like, yeah, absolutely, bring in order. And so we have to look at this thing for what it is and understand that the center may not hold. Like the institutions have already shown that they are hollow and rotted. There might be some work that needs to be done in order to avoid the worst case scenario. There will absolutely be suffering, but we can't just throw up our hands and say, if it's going to fall, it's going to fall, and there's nothing to do.
Speaking of that, this weekend, No King's Day, I'm hosting the event here in Nyack, New York, where I'm from now, and looking forward to being out there with some great Americans. What do you want to say about No King's Day and the protest movement, of what you've seen Americans' apathy change? I don't know how you would characterize it.
I want to be careful with how I articulate this. I think any time that millions of Americans go out and flex their small d democratic muscles, I think it is good for them. But in terms of something like No Kings, I think it is really important that the people who go out, and it's good for organizing, it's good for meeting people, it's good for being emboldened. We cannot let it be cathartic, where it's like, hey, I went out on this Saturday and I did this thing. I'm looking for whether or not something like this will ever develop an ask. Is there something that people are actually organizing around, whether it's an agenda or reform, or whether or not it's trying to pressure the Democratic Party? Are we going out in order to get it out of our system so we can go back and doing what we're doing, or are we getting out there and we're actually agitating for change? That's been my concern in terms of that movement.
I'll play a little bit different note, which is not about an ask or an action, but about the community component of it. I feel like my daughter was just reading 1984, and I feel like whenever we are out in the streets, in a park, next to each other, seeing other people that, whether they look like us or not, but even if they do, even if they look just like us, even if it's a white crunchy guy, even if it's a white bald guy with a beard, And it makes me feel like I'm not losing my mind. I'm not Winston in my home. The thought police aren't here. I can still practice my First Amendment rights. There's a whole bunch of other people from a broad range of backgrounds, socioeconomics, ethnicities that are out here with me. And we're organizing to elect people and to practice democracy in all its ways. People are collecting names. So, like, a lot of things happen. A lot of friends are made, a lot of relationships, but there's an enthusiasm that I think helps you fight for the next day and do all the keyboard warrior moves and everything else that you have to do to maintain your mental health and just to not lose your mind in that you're alone in thinking that we're losing our minds, we're losing our country, we're losing our democracy. So for me, I get invigorated, and that doesn't chart, and invigorated doesn't necessarily change democracy in a day, but it certainly is something that is necessary for all movements. And I don't know, this is as good of a one as I've seen.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you on any of those points.
I shouldn't say that. I was in the streets for the Women's March 2017.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and that's
too.
How do I talk about this? Okay. Because it's funny because it's like there's like a frontward public facing part of what we do. Like we get on here, we're doing a live stream, doing a podcast. Meanwhile, there's like shit I'm doing behind the scenes. So I'm trying to think about how to talk about this. In trying to actually create these types of things, I've talked to a lot of people who have led a bunch of protests in this era of Trump. And they've been overwhelmed by the amount of people who have come out to these protests and the number of people who are like, thank God there's somewhere we can meet, but there's a hesitancy to make it do something. You know what it really reminds me of a lot, Pete? It's know that you know about this. It was like the Jon Stewart rally.
Oh, I covered it for CNN. I got in trouble that day. I was there at the rally. I had just left working for Stephen Colbert at the Colbert Report and then was working at CNN. I was the fluffer at Colbert, and now here I am, an on-air correspondent covering the event. And yeah, say anything you want about it. I was intimately up. There's a banner.
Okay.
There.
So here's the thing with that rally that happened, the rally to restore sanity. How many people showed up to that thing?
Oh, there were, I don't know, tens of thousands? 40,000 maybe?
There's more than that.
Yeah.
And there was a feeling going into it that there was possibility in it because we were all so desperate at that time for an answer. And by the way, for how many years have people been clamoring for Jon Stewart to run for president?
Yeah.
And every time someone brings it up to him, Jon Stewart is like, I'm just a comedian. Crank anchors.
Oh, 215,000 people.
215,000 in a time period where people were desperate.
Yeah.
There is an audacity, to borrow a word, there is an audacity to take something very large and to turn it into something of action, right? So like, for instance, if the No Kings people, or I'm just using it as examples, going back to the Jon Stewart thing, you watch that rally. There was no actual message to the Jon Stewart rally. It was more of, we'll get together, we'll do a show, and we'll talk about this. And then he got out on stage, and you can see it in the clips. If people haven't seen it, he's, holy fuck, there are a lot of people here.
Yeah.
And he's, I guess we'll be nicer to each other, and we can be better. It's a lot like, I think a lot, Pete, to put this in different terms, I think about the Beatles in the 1960s, the most popular, powerful, influential band in the world. And then when it came time during a revolutionary period, they released a song called Revolution, in which they're like, stop talking about a revolution. There's an audacity that has to be crossed in order to turn something into an actual movement. And I have not seen that from No Kings. People are coming out and they're desperate for it, but there's no platform, there's no agenda that has manifested from it. That's my point.
Yeah, you don't see a real powerful movement of any sort, though, it would seem, in America, for sure, in our lifetime. Certainly in the generation before us with the civil rights movement, but that was like a kind of suffering and a kind of injustice that most Americans today aren't dealing with. And when you look at these similar movements in the rest of the world, including in Israel, there was a huge, massive movement for a long time in Israel, obviously in Iran, just to name a couple that are obviously partners or part of this war, much less Ukraine or anywhere else. And it's because of a kind of suffering that we're not feeling right now. And it's mostly the empathetic out there and the people. It's not the people who are suffering the worst that are in the streets as part of the movement necessarily. It's people who are probably doing good. Like the percentage of people who will be at the No Kings event who have health insurance and a job and some money in the bank probably be pretty high. But we're out there because we're advocating for those who have been marginalized. And yeah, we don't want to be joining them in the ranks of the unemployed and uninsured and suffering in a way we aren't now.
So in a way, I think what we are experiencing right now is, and by the way, watching ICE murdering people like in broad daylight.
That'll move people.
Or watching
that move people.
That's my point, is that type of shit has been happening to people of color for decades, for their entire lives. And it's the feeling, it's the piercing of the bubble that a lot of people have been living in. And when it comes to revolutionary energy or small d democratic movements, it usually happens when the comfort is disrupted.
Yes.
And we're starting to see that, is that more people are being made uncomfortable. And the American promise is you never have to be fucking uncomfortable. That's the entire point of being an American. Sure. Never, ever are you. Yeah. And quite frankly,
not only you should be not uncomfortable, you should eat and drink and drug whatever you want and fuck. Eat, drink, drug, and fuck whatever you want. Here's how to do it. Take this bucket of soda.
No, you're laughing, but you're not wrong.
No, it's like indulgence.
This is the most addicted country probably in history.
Yeah.
Because go back to the petrodollar, that entire system that's now falling apart. It's all been towards us being able to watch what we want, eat what we want, fuck all of these things.
Yeah, for sure.
But literally, if you go back to COVID, if you go back to the pandemic, like when it was at its highest level, why was that so fucking crazy and revolutionary? Because we didn't have access to all the distractions and all the comforts that we had. So now we're reaching another point where those comforts are going to be limited, and you're going to start to see, actually, you know what? An example. Pete, have you watched the HBO show Neighbors?
I watched the first couple episodes because I was told to watch it because, like me, that guy lost his big, awesome job. But that was the only thing we had in common. And even that, he had I just remember being like, this is not like me.
And by the way,
go ahead.
That show, I think that show is not just brilliant. I think it is the perfect encapsulation of the modern American moment, which is the idea that you should never be made uncomfortable and nobody should ever cause you problems. You should live a frictionless existence. And what is happening in this country is, as there is more and more friction, people are losing their fucking minds.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, like, the pressure is growing and growing, and eventually that pressure has to be released somewhere. So it's either going to be released through like oppression and violence, or eventually it's going to find itself entering into a revolutionary state. And I personally think it's going to be a mixture of the former and the latter.
Last thing I want to ask you specifically is about Christian nationalism. And there's so many ways to talk about this. We could have spent the whole hour, and we have in the past, talking about it, and it's really important. But yesterday, this evangelical pastor named Brooks Podjam, who serves as a close spiritual advisor, surprise to Pete Hegseth, he lambasted the Democratic Presbyterian seminarian James Tallarico, who's now the Senate nominee in Texas, for his interpretation of the Bible and defense of transgender minors. During this interview, he said he prayed that God will kill James Tallarico. And today, James Tallarico responded. He said, he posted on social media, he responded with love after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's pastor suggested he should be, quote, crucified. He wrote, Jesus loves, Christian nationalism kills. You may pray for my death, Pastor, but I still love you. I love you more than you could ever hate me. And my interpretation was the Christian nationalists are terrified of James Tallarico and anyone else who is a tried and true, or certainly seems to be as much as they are, a Christian American white man. They're terrified of a guy as pious as him, who is not right wing, who is not anti-LGBT, who is not on board with their medieval misogynistic, anti-gay, patriarchal views. They fear him desperately. They want God to smite him. And I just wanted you to react to Tallarico and the way he's handling that, and the threat that the real, quote, real Christians pose to these Christian nationalist murderous guys who have, as James Tallarico has said, a mouthful of scripture and a heart full of hate?
Yeah, as an ex-evangelical, one of the things that I've really come to understand is that, speaking of revolutionary energy, progressive, actual Christian churches at this point are fighting their own revolution, which is that faith in the United States of America, which has created the ability for Christian nationalism, capitalist exploitation, and imperial violence that took over the entire sort of culture in the country. Christianity became synonymous with cultish, patriarchal, homophobic, xenophobic hatred. And so what actually, when you study everything from scripture, like Christ in the scripture, whether you believe it or not, is portrayed as just like a leftist pinko figure. It's the wildest thing, but it got perverted particularly, and we don't have to talk about the fall of Rome and what happened in that entire time period, but it has become a veneer narrative mythology that has allowed violence and subjugation. And to watch people start to take that back, it's incredibly potent because, first of all, they've got the right on their side, right? They're right about their interpretation. And second of all, by getting rid of that veneer, which is, it allows people to hurt people. It's anti-democratic by nature. It's exploitative and violent in nature. That is cutting out one of the main narratives that drives all of this and launders the madness that we've been dealing with. It's incredible to watch, actually.
Jared Yates Sexton, you've done it again, and by done it, you've joined me in conversation and really made me think. I was like lowering the bar. You've done it again. You've connected to the internet and your camera works.
You got on your computer. You didn't fall and hurt yourself, which is wonderful. Like you didn't make a mess on screen in a way that will go viral, that you'll never live down.
You've done it again. Your microphone worked. Your camera was on. Well done,
My clothes on.
You've worn clothes to the public interview, sir. You've done it again. No,
my webcam didn't fall and show that I was actually pantsless the entire time in a meeting.
May have happened before. Thank you for opening my mind, for making me think, for conducting this conversation with such thoughtfulness as you always do, and for always being such a good guy to me. An authentically good human being. He is the change he wants to see. The guy you see here is not even as good as the guy off, because you wouldn't believe how sweet he is on that. And look at that face. Who have you talked to? Name somebody that you've been in conversation, either they on your show or you on theirs, that you've enjoyed, that you would suggest people go watch. I see you talking to all kind of people lately.
Not a single person.
Nobody's.
I don't trust anybody.
No. Who do you know?
I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No, I'm saying whose show that you appeared on. Yep. Give me another appearance of yours.
I'll tell you this. At this point, where we are politically, I honestly trust only a handful of people. But if people want a decent idea of what's going on and where things are going, go listen to someone like Dr. Richard Wolff, who I think gives a really good economic explanation and critique of capitalism in the modern moment.
Oh, yeah. He's been around forever. I interviewed him way back at SiriusXM. You know,
I've got to know Rick pretty well, and
tell him I said I should talk to him again. He's the only guest I think I ever had out of thousands of guests who said, you need to pay me if you're going to have me back on. He was like, you're exploiting my work. I was like, yeah, but like everybody does it for free because it's good for the same reasons. Like it's radio. Nobody is getting paid as a guest on a radio show generally, unless you make a deal. I don't know, but I respected him for it. I was just like, I don't know. We don't pay anybody. I'd love to have you on again, but I don't. Do you want a mug? Get you a mug. He's a good guy.
Oh, I don't have a mug.
Smart as hell. Yeah.
Are there mugs?
Back then at SiriusXM, we had swag. I could give out swag back then. Yeah. I have some.
How do we not have a stand-up mug?
I have no swag. I have old swag with SiriusXM. I have 500 T-shirts sitting in a box.
Can I have a shirt?
You can have all of them. You can knit them together and make a blanket.
Hey, listen, I got out of Greene County, Indiana, but it didn't get out of me. I will still just wear given shirts every day.
I'd love to see you wrapped in my name, actually, if you don't mind. All right, Jared, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. All right, there he goes. Jared Yates Sexton, everyone. Please go support him on the Blue Sky and the Threads and the Facebooks and all the social media. It's all linked in the show notes. And more importantly, go subscribe for free to him on Substack and YouTube. And if you want to send him some money, go to patreon.com/muckrakepodcast. So either subscribe there or on Substack for if you want to get a paid subscription to Jared. Dispatches from a Collapsing State, of course, is his podcast, rather his Substack. Oh, I'm losing it here at the end. Thank you very much for joining me. JaredYatesSexton.substack.com. That's it. Over 30,000 subscribers. Get on over to Dispatches from a Collapsing State and support Jared. And support me, patreon.com/Pete Dominic or substack.com/ or at StandUpWithPete. You can get a paid subscription at either. You get basically the same benefits. And or you can Venmo me a bonus or extra or your subscription in like 6-month chunks or something like that, because nobody wants whatever you want to pay. You could do it there as well if you really want to. I really appreciate all of the ways that you support me. I hope to see you at Podjam in April. Very much looking forward to that. Thanks for your suggestions on my trip to Amsterdam next week. If you're still listening and have any, by the way, of course, send them over. And taking Julie to Amsterdam for a few days to look around. Thank you for listening all the way to the end, you bumblebees. Whatever you're doing with your lives, I hope it's great and special and awesome. And I'm thinking of you when you're alone. You should join us in the Discord and tonight at the Hangout. Hope to see you there. Jon Carroll, hopefully we'll be there. Go support him, johncarroll.org. Bye-bye.
Stand up, show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. See the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for loss, and since they weren't in sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Oh, got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up. In the darkest hour, stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on.